Taiwan, I'm Tiffany Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The cabinet has announced a reshuffle involving 16 people. The Ministries of Economy, Health, and Digital Affairs, as well as the National Development Council, will all get new ministers. It also announced the new sports ministry will be headed by an Olympic badminton gold medalist. You can join us later this evening as we get more updates on this. China is preparing to hold a military parade marking 80 years since the end of its war with Japan, and it's using the opportunity to show off its latest weapons. While Taiwan is distancing itself from the event and calling for an international boycott, the parade is sparking talk about the country's own role in Japan's defeat. John Van Trieste reports.
In a week, Beijing will host a military parade marking 80 years since Japan's formal surrender in World War II and eventual withdrawal from China. The event is raising concerns in Taiwan, and not just because of the military might of a threatening neighbor on display. China claims Taiwan and says it won't rule out using force to take it. But Taiwan sees itself as sovereign, using the official name the Republic of China, or ROC. And Taipei is determined to make sure next week's parade doesn't become a tool for eroding that sovereignty.
尤其是在93阅兵，要维护国家的主权尊严跟整体利益，不要去呼应他们矮化台湾、伤害中华民国的相关言论。
Anyone in government is banned from attending, as are former national security personnel and anyone who's held a military rank of major general or higher. Taiwanese entertainers active in China are on notice too. The government is investigating and punishing 20 of them who've made statements seen as supportive of Beijing. Concerns about the parade aren't just about Taiwan's future. The past is at stake too. Beijing is expected to present the victory over Japan as a Communist Party triumph. But during conflict, most of the fighting was carried out by the ROC's nationalist forces, the same government that later fled to Taiwan. Communist guerrillas did fight in the north, but it was the ROC that bore the brunt of the war and suffered massive losses.
这个整个抗战8年的时间，甚至于延伸到过去，我想我们全国牺牲的将士官兵，这个超过300万人，一般的民众超过2000万人，其中也包括一些我们外交界的前辈，用血泪交织而成所换来的。
Some even say Taiwan needs its own events to counter the idea this was a purely communist victory.
抗战胜利才有台湾光复，所以这和中华民国也包括我们今天在台湾，当然都有重大关系。我看到现在的政府执政党对这个东西不表示态度，然后也不愿意办任何纪念活动，我当然感到非常遗憾。
Japan has already urged countries not to send representatives to next week's parade, prompting a protest and calls for the country to cut ties with its militarist past. And now, for its own reasons, Taiwan too is calling on democratic countries to boycott the event. But while the country is doing its best to distance itself from the parade, discussion about what it's commemorating and what it means for Taiwan is lively. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Officials and lawmakers from around the world have gathered for a gala in Taipei to show support for Taiwan. Alan Liu reports on how the event on Tuesday night is giving the politically isolated country a rare moment of reassurance from friends and allies abroad.
Organizers say a gala event in Taipei is highlighting global solidarity with Taiwan amid growing uncertainty and threats from China. The Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC Gala, hosted officials from the UK, Poland, Japan, and Sweden, as well as local officials including Vice President Bi Kim-hsiao.
Recently, I hear many people saying to us that it's not easy being Taiwanese. In fact, it's very hard. We are bullied, coerced, threatened, marginalized, and isolated in the international community. But that does not deter us, and neither has it impacted our pursuit of freedom and democracy.
IPAC works to promote international cooperation in responding to China's actions. It seeks to protect human rights, uphold sovereignty, and maintain regional peace.
We need some accountability for clear violations of the status quo. It isn't good enough for governments and for other people to say, we oppose any unilateral change in the status quo, when clearly the status quo has been routinely violated. We need to be looking towards accountability for those violations and pushing back against grey zone activity.
China considers Taiwan part of its territory and has threatened to use force to seize the country. Events like this gala highlights international recognition of Taiwan's importance amid rising security concerns in the Indo-Pacific, showing that while diplomatically isolated, Taiwan is not truly alone. Devin Tai, Leon Lian, Isabel Wong, and Ellen Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese chip-making giant TSMC won't be hit hard by steep tariffs on imported chips threatened by U.S. President Donald Trump. That's according to the head of Taiwan's National Development Council. In an interview with Japanese media outlet Nikkei Asia, NDC Minister Liu Jingqing said that TSMC's investments in U.S. manufacturing will mostly keep Trump's tariffs at bay. The company has pledged a $165 billion investment in its U.S. facilities, which may exempt it from import duties. Liu also said that 75% of Taiwan's exports would be unaffected by U.S. tariffs. Following his interview, Liu announced he is leaving his post at the end of the week, citing health reasons. He is one of the cabinet members stepping down as part of the reshuffle. Companies in Taiwan and 9 other countries could face new duties aimed at protecting U.S. steel producers. The U.S. Commerce Department ruled that these countries dumped or subsidized corrosion-resistant steel exported to the U.S. Some Taiwanese companies could now face nearly 11% in anti-dumping duties on top of existing 50% tariffs on steel. The ruling could affect nearly $3 billion of imports into the U.S. Corrosion-resistant steel, also known as core steel, is used in cars, appliances, construction materials, and other products. Human rights groups are urging Taiwan's government not to repatriate Burmese people to Myanmar, which is run by a military junta. The Taiwan Association for Human Rights, local organizations, and Burmese groups endorsed a letter to the National Immigration Agency. They warned that since the junta ended the state of emergency on July 31st, the Immigration Agency and Foreign Ministry are now assessing whether the country is safe for overseas Burmese to return. This review could affect the status of Burmese nationals in Taiwan, especially those who have been granted extensions. Taiwan does not have asylum laws, but does provide avenues for refugees on a case-by-case basis. The Immigration Agency says it does not forcibly deport people it considers at risk. To learn more about Burmese national status in Taiwan, I spoke with Liao Xinyi, migration and asylum policy researcher at the Taiwan Association for Human Rights. How have the risks increased for Burmese nationals living in Taiwan to be deported back to Myanmar right now?
Because of the junta's announcement of ending the emergency status in I think the 31st of July, the Immigration Agency and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is conducting an investigation collectively to reassess the situation in Myanmar. If they came to the conclusion that the situation has been improved, they will give out more general orders from the officers saying that the practice of extending on humanitarian concerns should not be a general rule, and they should proceed with the repatriation of those who has been staying in Taiwan because of those previous extensions.
So right now there are about 4,000 Burmese nationals living in Taiwan, and most of them are students. What risks do students face when they go back to Myanmar?
The 3 main dangers that faces that some came from regions that armed conflicts that has been particularly high, even compared to other regions. So that we have a lot of asylum seekers from Saigon, from Rakhine State, or Shan State, Chin State, which is the focus of the junta's airstrikes. And so this is part of this is one of the main dangers. Another is that there are also people who have engaged in political activities very actively, and then because of their activities, some of them have already been issued a court order, and there are also students who has been staying under the student visa in Taiwan when the coup happened, but they have been participating in solidarity events in Taiwan, the assemblies and also posting those informations online.
So the immigration agency handles these asylum cases and visa extensions on a case-by-case basis. How exactly do they assess the risk that somebody might face back in Myanmar?
If they submit some sort of evidence or just like a news report of what their hometown has been put under, the immigration will accept for consideration their pleas and they'll extend their visas or like postpone their deportation. But now they are like assessing both the ones that have been cleaned for like humanitarian consideration and also for like ongoing for like future cases the immigration agency will probably will be adopting a stricter review of those. I just want to add to that the immigration agency will usually give out statements saying that for those that they have determined that will be at risk of arbitrary deprivation of life or subject to torture if returned. When they say that they have never been deported anyone who has been identified as such, that should be taken in consideration that they have never explicitly acknowledged anyone or explicitly identify anyone as such.
That was Liao Xinyi from the Taiwan Association for Human Rights. Local communities are still cleaning up after 3 back-to-back storms brought flooding and destructive wind to southern Taiwan. As Irene Lin reports, locals now face threats from diseases and toxic debris as they try to rebuild their lives.
Stagnant floodwater and scattered debris left by the 3 storms since early July not only halted people's daily lives, but are also endangering their health. Over the past week, 9 people have reportedly contracted melioidosis, a serious bacterial infection, and 1 has died from subsequent complications.
这个个案他其实他脚部有伤口，那不过他在这个台风期间呢是没有出门的，而且这个他家的这个附近其实也没有发生水患。不过他个人他到底有没有接触到污水污泥是没有办法确认。
The high summer heat combined with polluted floodwaters have also led to cases of leptospirosis and dengue fever. In buildings whose roofs were damaged by the typhoon, residents are still working to rebuild by first breaking them down into smaller pieces. But what seems like a normal practice could lead to health problems, even cancer. These old tiles, common in countries like Japan and Taiwan, is made of asbestos.
因为石棉瓦它是有毒的，非常具有毒性。照理讲，灾民都不应该去拆除它，也不能随便请工人去拆除。
But there's no time for these residents to wait for professional help. Many have put on gloves and got to work.
在把剩下的石棉瓦拆掉的时候，我们看到的是都没有防护，然后就是也很多都是直接用暴力敲击的方式，然后那个粉尘是直接这样子散落。
Taiwan has restricted all asbestos use as of 2018, but many houses built with this material still stand to this day. Doctors say extra steps are needed to regulate asbestos pollution.
在这方面，我会觉得说，要有一个应变的计划，然后这个应变的计划也就会延续到说，我们在做这些拆除的时候，空气中石棉有多少的量，这事实上是可以监测的啦。
The Environment Ministry says it has warned local officials and residents about the health risks of asbestos tiles. And it is allocating $45 million to help locals remove them as part of its disaster relief budget. Whether it's dealing with disaster or toxic waste, Taiwan still has a long way to go to overcome the impacts of these storms. Ryan Wu and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with images of a giant panda celebrating its 2nd birthday at Moscow Zoo. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.